Hey, Jamalyn.
Hey, Kim.
We are back.
We're back. We're here with one thing more, and it gives us a chance to say a few more things about the sermon from this past Sunday. And we have a special treat because, Kim, it was you who preached.
I did. First time at Zionsville.
Oh, it was?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yep.
That's amazing. Well, I was not
solo.
here Sunday, but I got a big text picture from Margaret. And in all caps, it said, Pastor Kim is preaching. So she was excited to get to see you preaching.
We had a good conversation because I was surprised she was here. I was like, they didn't take you? What?
Yeah. So for our listeners, Dave is my husband. He's the pastor here at the church. And he ran a half marathon Sunday at Disney World. And it was the Food and Wine half marathon. And so we went with some good friends of ours. And the husbands, Zach and Dave, ran the half marathon. And Janine and I were the ones that celebrated when they were done.
Yeah, good. It sounds like a great deal to me.
Yes, it was quite nice. So, but I heard it was a great sermon.
Well, the sermon was the week of, the Bountiful Harvest series when we talked about rest and how we need to create a rhythm of rest. And when I started thinking about the sermon and doing a little reading and researching, I was kind of like embarrassed to be reminded that it's indeed one of the 10 commandments is to honor the Sabbath, rest, don't work, don't let your servants or your animals or your land or anything work.
So honoring the Sabbath is, you would say, the same kind of importance of don't murder anybody.
Absolutely. I didn't put that in the sermon, but I thought about it and I was like, oh, that's a little harsh, but it's exactly the same. Yeah.
So rest is just as important as remembering to not kill your neighbor.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of us who really struggle with that.
Yeah.
Not killing our neighbor.
But resting.
Maybe killing our neighbor. I don't know.
Yeah.
Christmas lights are about to go up, so some people may be tired of their neighbors. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Mm-hmm. I was sort of struck by that. And I think you're right, though. None of us think that the 10 Commandments are optional, but I certainly don't really privilege that one, or I'm just like, I can do that later, or I've got all this stuff that I need to get done.
I think, too, because the 10 Commandments are numbered, sometimes we think the ones towards the top are the most important.
Yeah, they're all.
It's not like a top 10 list.
Right. David Letterman.
David Letterman, yeah. And the number one is you need to rest. Well, when I remember reading a book, I believe the author's last name is Mueller. And John, I'll get you the name so you can look in the notes for the name of this book. But it's a book on Sabbath. And I read it in 2004.
Okay.
The reason that's important is because the smartphone had not yet been invented.
Okay.
And he talked about having an electronics box for Sabbath.
Oh.
But what he meant was like your computer.
Okay.
Because they're really, and maybe cell phones, but back then there wasn't.
Not much going on.
There was not Heyday or Candy Crush just yet that keeps you busy. So I remember thinking, that's a really good idea. And he said you should lock it even for the whole day, that part of your Sabbath would be taking a break from electronics.
Yeah, and in 2021, I think that is still excellent advice. I mean, we get just sort of sucked into our digitized lives.
Well, I read an article yesterday that in Portugal, there is a new labor law that is going into effect. Mm-hmm. And it is against the law for an employer to require an employee to email them back after work hours.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I think it's in response to everybody's working from home right now in Portugal still. And so there was a lot of abuses of power going on where people were being expected. But I thought about a lot of my corporate USA friends who tell me that there's no off switch. Like they are expected to reply back. Like there's policies for some companies that you must reply back to an email within so much time. Doesn't matter if it's 2:00 in the morning or, 6 a.m. on a Sunday, if you're required to email back. And now I guess there's all these chats. So like Microsoft 365, you can tell I work in the nonprofit world because there's three of us.
Teams is what
everybody gets. And apparently now the big thing is that they will talk to each other in comments, and people get mad because you can say on your Teams, I'm in a red zone, which means I'm not taking any comments, and they still do it. And so I'm bringing all this up only because I can see how it would be really challenging for someone who is indoctrinated that kind of culture to fast response, to all of a sudden say, now for 24 hours, there will be no response.
Yeah, to turn off.
You're going to be quiet.
It's sad that we've gotten to that place because we're really created to need to shut down. I think you're even more productive. Like, what do you think would happen if you really shut down for one day out of 7 for 3 weeks?
Your health would probably improve.
I think you're right.
What's fascinating to me is that in some ways, not everybody got to experience this during the shutdown, because I talked to a lot of people who said they worked around the clock during the shutdown. But a lot of people I talked to, like in my neighborhood and stuff, felt like they did spend more time resting. And I really thought there would be this huge culture shift.
Oh, yeah.
I thought people are not going to go back to that huge 18-hour days. People will see the benefits. Corporations will change, and none of that happened.
Yeah, I think that
At least
the
from
culture
where I
is
see.
pushing us to go back to pre-COVID ways of living. I don't think it's even possible. And so I'm a little concerned about like what happens next after everybody's forced to go back and it doesn't work, or people revolt, which is happening
Well, that's why
now.
you're having the great
Right.
resignation.
Yeah, exactly.
People say, I can't do it. So how this, I think, is connected to resting is that resting is, and we talk about this sometimes in here, how making decisions to follow God can be so incredibly countercultural.
Yes.
And I think resting is probably about as anti-American as you can get.
Yeah.
Like we are a country that prides itself in working hard and getting the job done and not quitting until we've done our best.
Yeah.
But what this commandment is saying is you can do that 6 days a week, but you can't on this one day.
Exactly, and I think that's really important. You can do all of those things. You can work 24/7 for the 6 or 24/6,
Yeah.
right? You can do that. That's you've got permission to work as hard as you want to work for 6, but then take 1 to even just reflect on the 6. Reflect on how you got through it, on what you want to do with the next 6, on who brought you to that place.
I always say we rest. For me, I have to remind myself, I rest to remind myself I'm not God.
Absolutely.
So, the Sabbath reminds us who God is and that we are not.
That we are not God. Yeah, exactly.
For sure. So, but it's very difficult when there is this bottom line that people are being pressed towards. It's really hard when you have kids who, want to participate in different things, and the weekend is when they get to do that. So now, you run into the same question, debate that you hear all parents talking about is, well, what do you do about sports on Sunday?
Yeah.
And the answer I continue to have is I don't know, but I'm glad neither one of my kids are athletic superstars because I don't have to have that fight.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I mean, people who do travel sports or competitive anything, usually there's stuff on the weekends.
Yeah.
And, even if it's not on Sunday, that's your travel day. So it takes a commitment. I mean, and your day doesn't have to be Sunday. either.
Oh, sure. No,
You know?
it absolutely doesn't.
So perhaps
Pastors know
there's
that.
ways to work it out so that Sunday isn't the day that you take for rest, but you need to take one.
I have some pastor friends, they put in their email signature. Friday is my day of Sabbath. This is when and I'm always, and I think that's wonderful that they're setting that precedent for their congregation even, who might be emailing them and expecting, again, a quick response, right?
Right.
Because if you live in that world, then when it's time to work with people outside of the place that has such high expectations, we forgot not everybody is going to run on that kind of rhythm.
Right.
So it's nice to see, a friend of mine who will say, thank you for your email. Friday is my day of Sabbath, and I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you, when I get back.
And people are like, later? Well, what do you mean by later?
I think that's a great idea. Because it's so easy, too, to get sucked into believing that my response is that important.
Oh, my gosh, right?
Is that necessary? Like, I got to comment on everything in real time? Yeah, no. Like, that is another reason to just, drop out for a minute.
Yeah.
Well,
and Adam Grant is one of my favorite people I follow. He does sort of workplace psychology. And he always says that the people who are sending you the email, that we tell ourselves they want a response immediately. They may not, now keep in mind, some people do. Like I said, they may, a boss may say, why wouldn't you reply to me? But the average Joe probably doesn't expect a reply within minutes.
Right. I think that was the original idea behind email, right? Is that I send it to you when it's convenient for me, and you respond when it's convenient for you, not that every time I send something, it has to be addressed immediately. Because the
smartphone ruined that for everybody.
When I worked in, places where you run into people and they say, did you get my email? I don't know. Did I answer it? I probably didn't get it.
People ask that question. I want to say, could you just ask the question you really want to ask, which
ask me the question you were asking in the
email,
You
haven't
right?
replied, and I want to know,
Yeah.
Oh, I got your email. I read it, and I just didn't think it was important enough for me to comment.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what they really want to know? Yeah.
Yeah. And it has turned into something different, though, right? It is not a thing. Email has not given us more time or allowed us to have more control over how we use our time.
Oh, no, it just amps she has on. And, we're waiting for the concert to start. And so what do? I just open up Amazon, and I'm trying to find the one she wants.
Yes.
You
go shopping while you're waiting.
Right. 20 years ago, when I read that book about Sabbath, all he meant was put your computer in a box, not quit ordering things off Amazon while you wait for your son's 7th grade band concert to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's how
we don't idle time is I don't want to say dead space, but I think we all pick up our phones when we're waiting, just instead of just waiting.
Right.
And, maybe having happy thoughts or deep breathing, or we pick up a device and we're busy responding to something.
I have a good friend from seminary. He has 4 kids. And, once I was talking to him when our kids were a lot younger about this battle of fighting boredom. Mm-hmm. And, the kids will say, I'm bored.
Yeah.
And I read once to say, well, you're responsible for your own fun. Which, what the heck does that mean to a kid? Right? He's like, okay. I think I said that once, and my kids looked at me like I had lost my blessed mind, which maybe I had, I don't know. Anyway, but he used to say to his kids, well, I'm really glad you're bored. That's great, because that's when your brain rests, and when you come up with creative ideas and think about nothing, which is really great to do. Think about how when we used to go for really long drives, we would just stare out the window.
Yeah, stare out the window, see how many red cars or trucks or whatever.
I tried that on the kids. Nathan, I'm bored. Well, I think that is just wonderful. And I say it to him, and he's like, okay, whatever. And then, the next time he says, I'm bored. Well, I think that's what I know, Mom. You think my mind is supposed to rest, but I'm still bored.
And our mind actually has to rest, right? When you're sleep deprived or just overtired, you're not doing your best work, when you are working?
Well, I had all of these surgeries over the summer, and having brain surgeries is a little bit tricky because your brain really has to rest to recover. Mm-hmm. It needs sleep to be able to heal. And I was reaching a point where I felt like I should be getting better. And finally, when I went to the doctor once, the doctor said, you still have at least 2 weeks where you need to be in bed constantly. And I looked at Dave, like almost needing Dave to give me permission. Right? Mm-hmm. And Dave was like, I've been trying to tell her that. Now all of a sudden I was like, well, I guess I'll go to bed for 2 weeks. And you know what happened after a week?
What?
I started to feel so much better. Mm-hmm. At the end of the 2 weeks, I was like, oh, I feel great.
Well, they might be onto something, huh?
Apparently your brain does like rest. So if you've had like a stressful day, not everybody has to have 3 brain surgeries to figure that out. Right. But if you've had a stressful day, or it's been really chaotic, or kids might be driving you a little bit crazy. I mean, we have to give ourselves the permission needed to rest, or we're just not going to be adding much to society.
You're not. And it's, speaking of counterculture, it's so easy to shame yourself into thinking that you're not doing enough and that you can't go take a nap. And also you can model that for the people around you, for your children, that resting is important. And whether that's reading a book, but like for an hour, we're shutting this place down, people. Like, you go get a book, I'm going to go get a book, or I'm going to take a nap. No talking. Let's just practice doing this.
And I'm not really sure when our kids, when my kids were little, we had nap time every afternoon. I'm not sure why we stopped doing that.
Right.
I mean, why do we assume that when your kid turns 5.5, all of a sudden they're grown enough that they don't need an hour to rest?
Yeah. That makes me think about, when they first go back to school, especially like kindergarten, first grade, second grade.
They're so wiped out.
They're so exhausted when they get off that bus, that they got to shut it down. Yeah. I've got my snack in my hand and my head on the table. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
And I feel that way sometimes.
I still like to have a little rest every afternoon. Sometimes the kids will come home and I'll be like, I'm having a rest. And I set the Alexa.
And Alexa, wake me up in an hour.
What's going on with our mugs?
Oh, so we put out a call for mugs, and hey, we got mugs. These particular mugs are from Broadway United Methodist Church. They had a program called Reignite. I believe it was a concert. I'm not sure. But they were giving away the mugs at an event that I went to on Saturday.
Aaron Hobbs is the pastor there. He's friends with us. So that's kind of nice. You know what will help you reignite?
What?
Rest.
Rest, absolutely.
Rest will help you reignite.
Right.
And the Holy Spirit will too, which is what the fire represents on our mugs. So let's not get too scared about the fire.
Oh, yeah, no.
That's the tongues of fire coming out, the Holy Spirit.
There's a lot of references to that in the Bible. Right?
Making it happen. Okay, so we said we were going to try and end each time with giving a little bit of a charge to our folks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we're talking about rest.
Yeah, you were given one if you listened to the sermon, and it was for the next 3 weeks, plan your rest, share that plan with someone as your accountability partner, but we could do something additional also.
I just want to let you know, last week I said I was going to not buy any more shoes, and I didn't.
Oh, okay.
So I'm really proud of myself.
One weekend.
One weekend. All right, so we're going to rest.
We're going to rest. And we could start with something small. Okay, if it sounds like so crazy, just crazy to take an entire day, I would challenge people to start with arriving someplace maybe 10 minutes early and doing 5 minutes of deep breathing before you go into your thing. Just take a 5-minute rest before you start again. Find your zen, find your center. Jesus might be waiting there.
And you can set a timer if that helps you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the timer goes off, and what you'll find, because you did this once before with us, when Dave and you did a conversation and you told everybody to work on taking 5 minutes. I would set a timer, and what I found is the more I did that, the longer I would go past the timer, and all of a sudden 5 minutes wasn't enough. For me to really be able to finish my thoughts or whatever. So 5 minutes a day.
Your body gets used to that, and your body realizes what's going to happen at the end of that, right? And your body craves that. So,
well, what I always think is interesting is when I listen to different celebrities talk or being interviewed, they'll say, "Oh, do you do any kind of, mindfulness, yoga or not yoga, meditations?" And they'll say, "Oh yes," the ones who say it completely changed my life, and when I don't do it, I'm off balance. Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, of course you are, because we don't have to have a life like a celebrity where we're as busy as they are, but we're busy too.
We're busy. Yeah, we're busy.
That 5 minutes can help really change your whole day.
Mm-hmm. If you do it as a practice.
As a practice.
Yep.
5 minutes a day, everybody. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay. Well, I
Can we
guess
start
everybody
at 5
can.
minutes now? Just kidding.
Yes, we're going to show you how to do it. Get comfortable in
John,
your chair.
get the timer ready. Here we go. You guys at home, watch us while we rest for 5 minutes.
Let go of everything and rest. All right, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.